Hi everyone, my name is Leanne Reimel. I'm an admin evangelist here at Salesforce. So usually I make videos sharing how to do really cool and fun things with our latest platform technologies like Flow and Lightning App Builder. However, today I wanted to talk to you about some of the tips that I have about working from home. So it's a little bit different subject matter, but I think it's incredibly important that we all work together to be as effective as possible and maintain balance as we're transitioning, many of us, into working from home. So I have been working from home for about 6 years. And before that, I was in an office. I was in our San Francisco headquarters in San Francisco. I took the train every day to work. I got to be amongst my colleagues in a major office and run into people in the hallways and work in that way. And then I transitioned to working from home in a city that none of my colleagues lived in. So I didn't get to see my colleagues at all, and I didn't get to go into an office at all. I didn't have that option. And I feel like working from home has been really successful for me personally, for my professional career, for my personal life, for my health. However, it wasn't easy. It took some transition. It definitely was a learning curve, and there was things that I learned along the way that helped me be more successful. So I wanted to share some of those today with you. The first is to establish some boundaries and a new routine. I think this is really important. Many of us commute to work, and that routine is kind of established for you. You have to hit your train by a certain time. You've got to get on the road by a certain time. And so I think that it's important to replace that routine, those clear bookends to your day, with a new routine. So I'm a big advocate when you work from home of creating a new routine. So I like to have personally a morning routine where I get up, I take my dog out, I make my tea, I read the news, and then I go to work. So I have this kind of very clear defined, here's what I do every single morning. And it doesn't matter what it is, what your routine is, but just having something that you do every morning that really sets that opening to your day and transitions you out of, sleeping and dealing with your home life. At the end of the day, I think that's also really important to have a routine. It's really easy when you work from home to have your work kind of creep into the night and to be working really late and to not have a clear kind of definitive end to your workday. I like to have something that really makes me change my mental state at the end of my workday. For me personally, that's walking my dog or cooking because I can't multitask during either of those things. I'm either, in the kitchen cooking, my hands are dirty, I can't check my phone, I can't check my computer, or I'm walking the dog, so I'm not checking my phone. And so I think having something that helps you not only clearly step away from your work and step away from your computer, but also, frees your mind up to focus on something else. Get it in a different flow state for another topic area or another task that you're completing. I think it really helps clear you up mentally and provide a clear bookend for the day. So that's creating a new routine. The next is setting a workspace. Setting a workspace, I cannot overstate how important it is to have a clear workspace at home. Our brain gets trained to do certain things when we're in certain spaces or settings, right? When you go to bed, it's time to go to sleep. When you go to the kitchen, it's time to eat. And we want to train our brain to know, hey, when we go to this space, this setting, it's time to work. And when we're not there, we're not working. And so this is both to help you be productive while you're working and also to prevent work creep into all areas of your personal life at home. So I'm very lucky where I live that I do have a room that I've dedicated to my office. However, you don't need to have a room dedicated to your office. In previous places that I've lived where I didn't have space to have a room or like a nook for my office, I just actually would pick like a corner and pick a wall, pick a corner and just say, this is going to be my workspace. And maybe that meant I had to break it down if we were having people over for dinner or if it was a weekend, but I would just put up my little table there and say, this is where I work. Even if it's just the end of your kitchen counter and you clear everything off of that space and you dedicate that for your workspace, anything that you can do that helps set that mental tone of like, this is where I'm working. And if you can, leaving your computer there. So when you're done working, you step away from your computer, you step away from your workspace. So setting a workspace is number 2. That's really important. Number 3 is proactively adding time for social engagements. Both personal and professional, honestly. I think that it's really important when you work from home. It can cause a lot of people to feel maybe isolated, or you don't have the benefit of all of those different, running into people in the hallway that you would have had in the office. So if there's colleagues that you enjoyed working with or that you often would have kind of chit chats with, set up hangouts with them, set up virtual meetings, or even just text with them and kind of loop them into what you're doing. Proactively add that time for social engagements and schedule that extra stuff on the calendar, like put it on the calendar. One thing that can be really fun is to have an agenda-free kind of space on the calendar for you and your colleagues. So you could call it a study hall or a happy hour or a coffee chat, where people can join if they don't have anything else scheduled and if they want to, and just chat, just talk about what you're working on, how your day is going, how your dog's doing, whatever. But it just meant to kind of replace that time when you would have potentially run into people in the lobby of your office. And also, again, as many of us are transitioning to working from home more than we have in the past, schedule those social times as well. If you can schedule like walks with your friends, things like that, try to make sure that you're proactively filling that bucket of social engagement wherever you fall on the introvert extrovert spectrum. It's really important, I think, to proactively care for ourselves during times where we're going through transitions. So the fourth thing is mindful self-care. If I could say the weirdest, most unexpected thing that happened for me when I started working from home that I just wouldn't have guessed would be a problem, at first I forgot to eat because I would just sit and I would work all day, and I was 10 feet away from my kitchen, so I don't know how that happened. But I would just sit and work all day, and I didn't have these kind of clear external cues or reminders to say, hey, it's time to go get breakfast, or it's time to go to lunch with my colleagues, or it's time to go get an afternoon coffee. I didn't have those external kind of distractions or breaks to push me away. So I would all of a sudden look at my clock and say, oh my gosh, it is 3 p.m. and I haven't gotten up and walked around recently. I haven't really eaten since, 8 a.m. This is not healthy. And so sometimes if you are someone who gets in that deep focus state while you're working, I think it's even more important to kind of schedule those external reminders for yourself and say, okay, like maybe I make sure that I've eaten by 1 every day. And maybe I make sure I get up and I change position every 60 minutes. Because for many of us who are get into a hyper-focused state, it can be really easy to all of a sudden realize you've been sitting in the same spot for 5 or 6 hours and you haven't gotten up to eat, you haven't filled up your water, you're not kind of taking care of yourself. So make sure that you're proactively practicing mindful self-care. My last tip is to ask for what you need. Everyone's different with what they need during times of transition, and this is a great time to practice a lot of empathy and kindness with yourself and with your colleagues. And so if you're brand new to working from home and there's something you're struggling with, there's something that you have questions about that seems to be a big obstacle, like talk to trusted members of your team, talk to your colleagues, talk to your friends, ask for advice, especially if you have people who maybe have been working from home for a long time. It's a great time to lean on them for advice, best practices, tips. It's also a good time to ask for, support and accommodations if you need those, if you're going through a stressful time. And also, if you are someone who's been working from home for a long time, and this is kind of old hat to you, you know what you're doing, this is a really good time to, show leadership and support for your team members who are going through a transition. And so reach out to those team members and ask them how they're doing, ask them how telecommuting is going for them, share your advice if they'd like it. I think that this is a really good time for us to all remember that we're all going through kind of different changes in our schedule, different changes in our routines, in our home lives, if we're working from home for the first time especially. And so practicing a lot of empathy, a lot of kindness, a lot of self-care, and just really being supportive of one another as we go through these changes. So I hope those tips were helpful. On the blog for this, I've also included a few links to some really great resources for working from home written by my colleagues that I have personally found very helpful. And as always, reach out to us on Twitter if you've got questions or tips or best practices at Salesforce Admins, and there's no I in admins. That's all for today, and I will see you next time.